Right, everyone, let's bang. Welcome to Chasing Winners, your number one show for all DFS gambling-related sports talk. This is our first NFL podcast of the year. We've done a couple of different sports. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Baumohl, gambling DFS tips on Twitter. And hopefully every week I'll be joined by the same two guys for this NFL show. Kyle Mastoloni, K Mastoloni on Twitter. You may know him from the UFC show we did before. Kyle, what's up?
What's up? Just excited to get started with football again. It's almost that time.
And to make it fair, since I brought a guy who has a bad football team, I brought a second guy who has a bad football team. JP Lyon, Viking fan JP on Twitter. JP, say what's up.
What's up, everybody? It's great to be at least close to football season. It's right around the corner, and excited to watch my bad football team this year.
All right. Well, I'll say we can get into a couple things at some point. We'll go through some just basic division winners. We'll go through some gambling picks, some bets, some futures, some Super Bowl winners, all that kind of stuff. But before we get into this, since this is the first episode, if you can subscribe, leave a review, whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google, on YouTube, any of that, it helps us to keep this free for you guys and obviously give you guys hopefully some good information and some good entertainment at the same time. If anybody wants to comment on the YouTube video, we'll be there. So I'll at least be answering some comments or questions or anything. I know the other guys will be checking in as well. But yeah, I guess let's just get into it. There's not much else to do. Football's right around the corner. JP mentioned that he's ready to watch his shitty football team. So with that being said, let's start with our predictions. Who's going to win the NFC North? I'll start with you, JP, and I'll give you a chance to say it's going to be the Vikings, but I got a feeling you're not going to say that.
No, I'm not going to say that. I have a fair amount of experience with the NFC North, and I can tell you it's probably going to be the Packers. They don't typically lose the NFC North, and everyone knows that. No one's picking against the Packers, and there's not a team in the division that can actually challenge them this year. They can get their defensive players back, but the coach and the quarterback are fighting constantly, and that's not exactly helpful for the team. The Lions stink, and the Bears have a rookie quarterback. So the division scores the Packers. Yay, everybody.
And I mean, the odds obviously say the Packers. We're using odds on a couple different books here, but for Packers, they're minus 170, minus 180, depending on the book you're using to win that division. Vikings are the second favorite, which I feel like the Bears maybe should be a little closer to the Vikings, especially if Justin Fields is going to be the guy. Maybe not even week one, but if he's going to be halfway decent, I think those odds should be fairly similar. But right now, the Vikings are 3-1 to win that division. Bears are plus 550 to win that division. The Lions are plus 2,500 to win that division. KMS, you're going to tell me the Lions are going to win this division at 25-1, right?
Oh, 100%. But no, seriously, I don't think you could pick against the Packers in this division. I mean, you just look down the list of the four teams you just listed. There's only one real competent team in there in the Packers. They win the division every year, like JP said. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were in some previous years, but it's going to be good enough to win the NFC North again.
And yeah, I'm going to make this three of us on the exact same boat here. Obviously, like we said, the odds show it. I think the Packers are the best team here. Something to watch, JP did mention, is Rodgers had that offseason. I personally like what he did. I think it was very beneficial. I think he at some point was saying that somebody in this organization at some point needs to take a stand. And him going up on that press conference and listing like 12, 13, 14 different players, basically just being like, these are guys that should have been here longer. They didn't get the final contract they should have gotten. The team didn't take care of them right. This can go a lot of different ways. At the end of the day, I still firmly believe Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in football, obviously the reigning MVP winner. If he does what he should do and what they do, obviously at minus 180, it seems, like a pretty good bet to win the division. But as JP said, tendency between the quarterback and coach to fight a little bit. Maybe that does happen, and maybe it does, make this. I'll even say that the Packers could be 80% of what we think they're going to be and still be right in contention to win this division. But I do think if you're going to bet somebody not to bet the Packers, and this isn't just a shot at JP, I do think the Bears at the plus 550 are the right bet in terms of value there. Because that defense is still going to be good. We talked about seems like Andy Dalton's going to probably still be that quarterback to start right now, but Justin Fields is there. He's looked good. Obviously, we'll get through it, but pretty much every single rookie quarterback has looked good. Even Zach Wilson, when we get to the Jets, like he looked awful in practice. Then you put him in a game, and he actually looked like he kind of deserved to be out there. So I think in terms of the odds, the Bears may be that bet at 5.5 to 1, but the Packers are obviously most likely to win that division. All right, let's go to the NFC South. NFC South. This is where we're going to differ a little bit. And now I want to almost reserve the right to change my pick because all right, so let's get to the South. I picked the Saints to win the South. And now I'm almost on the other side of like, I think the Saints might almost finish last in the South. Now here's why. I picked the Saints to win the South because Jameis should be the starting quarterback, and outside of Aaron Rodgers, Jameis is the best quarterback in football. So by logic, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take the Saints to win it. But now who knows what's going on with Michael Thomas. They've had that injury back and forth, whether he got the surgery on time, whether he didn't. Then he said things got fixed. Then they had a good conversation. Then they didn't have a good conversation. At the end of the day, I don't think it's hard to argue. I mean, I guess maybe it's close. I think that when you're talking about the two best players in that division, just total best players, it's Christian McCaffrey, it's Alvin Kamara. Those are the two best players in that division. At the end of the day, you know, maybe you're taking – I guess the Bucs are the right pick, like you guys are going to talk about in a second. But I just don't know if necessarily the value's there. The Bucs are minus 200 to win that division. So I guess that probably is the pick. But if, like I said, the Saints are plus 350. That's kind of why I went with them because there was kind of some value there. The Falcons are 8 to 1. The Panthers are 11 to 1. I guess the Bucs are probably going to win that division. Kyle, minus 200, that seems like a lot to pay for the Bucs, where Brady's a guy and this team is a guy where last year they didn't look great all year, but it's just when it's time to win in the playoffs, it's time to win in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, when it's winning time, they show up. I mean, we had playoff Lenny pop off during the playoffs as always. I mean, but I think this is a situation. Minus 200 isn't necessarily the best odds, but I mean, I was picking who I think is most likely to actually win the division here, and I went with the Bucs because, I mean, best continuing. They won the Super Bowl last year. Absolutely incredible team, incredible defense especially, and it just getting better everywhere as well.
So if we're putting odds into it, obviously, so we're going to put it down. All three of us are just going to straight up take the Bucs. At this point, I do think that's the right bet. But when you're talking about the odds, Kyle, is minus 200 the bet you're making, or would you try and find value elsewhere?
If I was going to make a bet on this division, it would probably be on the Saints for value wise, but I'm obviously still picking the Bucs straight up to win the division.
I think this is one of those, and JP, I'll let you get into it in a second. I think this is one of those where maybe you can parlay the winner. Some books will let you parlay division winners, maybe this with the Packers or this. We'll get into like the Chiefs, you know, a team that's kind of probably likely to win that division. I think that's kind of how you can use that. But JP, obviously we talked about a minus 200. It is a steep price, but you're picking the Bucs to win the South as well.
Yeah, similar to what Kyle said, it's not something that I would necessarily bet with those odds. It's a pick I would take straight up when you're not talking about betting. I just don't think I've never liked the Saints, obviously, but I think with the Michael Thomas stuff, and then I mean, clearly Ryan just got convinced after seeing that video of Jameis at practice dancing. But
no, it's been since he ate that W in college or when he first got to the NFL, whenever that was.
No, I'm saying you got convinced off of him once you saw him dancing.
Oh, I can't be convinced off of Jameis, never.
But no, I don't think. I mean, talk about Carolina. I don't think they have the right team around Darnold to carry him to the playoffs. The Falcons. I don't know why the Falcons would be ahead of the Panthers. For me, I would still put the Panthers ahead of the Falcons this year, even though they've added Pitts and lost Julio Jones. I still think the Panthers are better than the Falcons, but neither of those two teams are on par with the Saints and the Bucs. Saints, I could see them getting double-digit wins and pushing for a wild card, but I still think the Bucs are ahead of the other teams in their division.
So not talking fantasy-wise, but just talking just football general-wise, who do you think is the best player in that division? You think it's McCaffrey? You think it's Kamara?
Christian McCaffrey is the better overall football player than Kamara, I think. But if you are talking fantasy, I would. It's really close actually, but yeah, I think Christian McCaffrey is the best football player in the division all around.
So maybe that's a chance where maybe you just take a flyer on the Panthers at plus 1100. You hope, I don't know, I don't want to say you hope for a Brady injury, but the Bucs are always, with the guys they have, they're 1 or 2 injuries away from being a completely different team. If all of a sudden you've got a team at 11-1 with the best player in the division, or at worst the top 2 player in the division, I think you could definitely do a lot worse.
I actually,
right.
like you mentioned. Sorry, you mentioned division winner parlays, and I actually have one that I'm looking at right now. I'll get to it once we get through all the picks.
All right, so let's get to the West, the NFC West. This is, I'd argue, maybe I guess you could maybe argue the NFC East, but this is probably the only division where I think 4 teams legitimately have a chance to win it. 3 teams obviously have a much better chance, but that 4th team I think is very much in this race. The Rams are 2-1 to win this division. 49ers 2-1, so those are the co-favorites. The Seahawks, they're plus 275, and then the Cardinals, they are 6-1 to win this division. Kyle, I think we're all going to be on the same page here. I think we all like the same team, but this is going to be the closest division, we think, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be the closest division. I think that's still the NFC East, but I think it's definitely the best division in the sport. I mean, you have four teams where you put them in any other division and they compete. Maybe besides against the Chiefs in the AFC West, but you know what I mean. And yeah, I do think it's just the most competitive, the best overall division in the sport.
So JP, you're going to take the Rams kind of, I think, like we are, but the question I want to ask you first is the Rams and the 49ers, they're co-favorites at 2-1. Are the 49ers it's probably not likely for any of these teams to have it happen, but are the 49ers the team that's most likely as the favorite to finish last in their division? I think the only other team that potentially could finish last as a favorite is the Cowboys, and that's if another Dak injury happens or something. But if you're looking at these other teams, the Bills, the Ravens, the Bucks, the Chiefs, the Titans, the Packers, I mean, if you're betting a favorite to finish last and you're trying to just take a big shot, it seems like the 49ers, that might be where it could unravel, right?
Yeah, if you have to pick one of those, the Niners are not. I mean, they're probably the best choice you have. The only other one I could possibly think is it would be Titans if it was a non-Texans really bad year, but it's going to be a Texans really bad year, so they're not finishing last. And then you never know with the NFC East, like Kyle said. So Niners are probably your best favorite to finish last.
All right, so now tell me why the Rams are going to win the division.
Well, they did well last year, and they've upgraded the quarterback. I think to me, it's pretty simple. I believe in Sean McVay, and I've always liked Matthew Stafford. I think he's deserved better than the Lions for a long time, and they're still bringing back that defense with Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. Obviously everyone in that division can compete, and Trey Lance could lead the Niners to the division title. Russell Wilson can always win the division, but if I got to pick somebody, I'm going to go with McVay and Stafford. And the best romance of training camp.
And that's what I was going to say is we're going to get into this a little bit later when we get into some of our individual bets. People may call me crazy. I truly think the Rams in that NFC West have the best offensive player and the best defensive player. I truly think Matt Stafford under Sean McVay is going to be the best offensive player, and Aaron Donald's just the best defensive player, maybe we've ever seen. I think that's really what it comes down to. Kyle, you're picking the Rams too at 2-1. Is that a bet you would make? Would you maybe bet something else, or is this a stay away division for you?
That's actually a bet I would make. I mean, we might talk about it later with Super Bowl matchups. I love this Rams team. I mean, like you said, they upgraded like JP and you said, they upgraded at quarterback, and they were good before, so they're just going to be even better in that situation. They kept all their key pieces. They have the best defense, arguably the best defensive player in the league. And
No,
And
not
yeah,
arguably the best defensive player in the league. They have the best defensive player in the league. Aaron Donald's at the point where it's like LeBron James in the NBA, where it's like he doesn't like LeBron James doesn't win MVP like when it's time to give to somebody else. Like Aaron Donald doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year like when it's time to give to somebody else.
true.
All right. Well, since you're talking about how good the Rams are and a great team and how they have all the pieces, let's go on to the NFC East, where Kyle, your division winner. They're much like the Rams, aren't they? They have all the pieces in place. They've got the quarterback of the future. Assuming he stays healthy, they do have the running back of the future. They've actually put some weapons around Daniel Jones this year. The defense has been pretty decent for kind of, especially the turnovers the offense have put him in, and hasn't been the best. I don't remember what game it was last year. There was a game last year where the defense gave up like 21 points on it was like 40 something total yards. It was like but the defense has kind of been that bend but don't break mentality. Kyle, I know you're a Giants fan, but instead of being a Giants fan, be an analyst and tell me why the Giants have a chance to win this division, because they do.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. Number one, the NFC East is chaos. There's a new winner every single year. I mean, they rotate back and forth. I like to compare it to the ACC Coastal in college football, where they're all mediocre teams that just constantly trade the division win. But the thing about the Giants, I mean, look how close they were to winning it last year. It came down to Philly throwing the game, and we didn't have Daniel Jones for a few weeks. We were without Saquon Barkley for almost the entire season. We had Evan Ingram, who couldn't catch a fucking ball. We still have him this year, but we have another option at tight end as well this year in Kyle Rudolph. So we're in a better situation. We put weapons around Saquon Barkley. The offensive line, I mean, we put weapons around Daniel Jones. The offensive line is still obviously a big question mark. He's going to get hit a lot once again. Hopefully he could protect the ball a bit better. But yeah, I mean, we put the weapons behind him. It is a sink or swim year for him. If he doesn't do well this year, we're going to go after a quarterback. Probably Gettleman might get fired as well if this year doesn't work out. So I'm looking for us to hopefully have a bounce back year, make up those 1-2 wins, and win the division.
And see, I don't think the Giants are going to win the division, but I actually like what Gettleman's kind of done, where, like you said, it's a prove-it year for Daniel Jones, but he's given him every chance to succeed. We've talked about those other quarterbacks. There are so many quarterbacks that are put in situations, and they're drafted high, and it's like, go be Aaron Rodgers. Just go make these receivers like guys that aren't like what Peyton Manning did to Pierre Garçon. Make this guy a number one receiver who's about to get paid. And these guys, they're not always able to do that. And we're talking about, like you said, surrounding guys like Daniel Jones. We'll get into this later, but even you get in that argument with Lamar Jackson. Is like Lamar's passing hasn't been great, and it hasn't been awful. He's the guy that can make all those throws, but he's not as consistent. But at the end of the day, it's like, who's the best receiver he's throwing to? He's obviously got a guy like Mark Andrews, but when we're talking about it, there's not much out there. When we're talking about the Giants, they've given Daniel Jones every chance to succeed this year. They've given him multiple tight ends. They've given him receivers. He's got the ability to run. He's got the ability to scramble. I actually think it's going to be a good year for Daniel Jones. But this is what I'll say. Can we agree that the Cowboys at plus 150 to win this division is because Dak, there's question marks about his health? If Dak was fully healthy, the Cowboys are odds on, right? They're minus 110 probably, something like that. Is that agree? Or you think this price is just what it is? You think they're assuming Dak's fully healthy?
I think this price is what it is just because of the chaos of the NFC East division. I mean, I don't see how you could bet a team essentially ever in this division recently as a minus money favorite. It's just not. Why would you do that?
I think the Cowboys, if a fully healthy Dak, I think the Cowboys are the best team. Maybe not. Obviously, the odds do show that at plus 150. JP, you're going the other way because Kyle talked about how crazy this NFC East has been. So JP is like, just give me the biggest odds. You're taking the Eagles at 5-1.
Well, first of all, I don't think that you can ever trust specifically the Cowboys at minus money favorites. And I don't think that's because of Dak. I just think they were the best team last year. I don't know what the odds were to start the year, but they're usually the best, best rosters put together, best team.
But they do have those Cowboys odds that are built in. Like people bet on the Cowboys. Giants are actually one of those teams too. People bet on them where those odds are kind of just like baked into it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And I was also going to say, Kyle, you also need to get rid of your owner after that taunting penalty comment he was making. But so I'm going the Eagles here. So you've got a dartboard that's essentially split into 4 even pieces, and you're giving me far better odds on one of the pieces. So I'm going to aim at that piece. I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's so much of an upgrade over Carson Wentz. And I think that was clear in the games that he started. Obviously, getting Devontae Smith and jumping the Giants for him was a huge move. And I like the pieces they've added on defense as well. They got Anthony Harris, who I've watched a lot of his games, obviously being Viking, and he was I like his play a lot. He tied for the league lead with 6 interceptions a couple of years ago. They added Ryan Kerrigan from Washington. He's 4-time Pro Bowler. That's a good add on defense. And then they added another Viking, Eric Wilson, led the team in tackles last year for the Vikings. So I think they've improved their defense at least a little. And I think they've improved their offense with Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. And honestly, every team in the division was 1 game away from winning it last year. So the teams that made the most improvement this year should be in line for division title this year.
And as it should be with the NFC East, I'm going to take the Washington football team. We're going to make this 3 different picks, and none of us taking the favorite. I'll take the football team. They're plus 250, what I'm looking at. So basically what we're looking at right now, the Cowboys are plus 150, Washington's plus 250, Giants plus 375, Eagles plus 500. All right, I'm trying to think if I want to go for the pros or the cons first. The con, it's one big con. It's what we've talked about. It's what a lot of people talk about. Nobody wins this division back-to-back. It just doesn't happen. Now, what was it, 2004, I think is what you said?
2003-4 was Eagles.
So here's going to be my counterpoint number 1. Washington didn't win the division last year. Philadelphia just handed a division, and Washington happened to be there to take it. So Washington didn't win the division. So last year, that doesn't count. So if they win this year, it's not like they won back-to-back. So there, I've just disproved that argument. Yeah. But I do think, and we can go over a couple different positions here, is it in question to say that Ron Rivera is the best head coach in this division? I think McCarthy, obviously what he did with Rodgers, but I think with Rivera, with what he's done in Carolina, with how well liked he is by everybody, he just seems like the guy where it's like he seems like he's the coach in this division, unless one of you guys think it's somebody else.
I think I think the jury's still out on Joe Judge. I do think that Ron Rivera is definitely the most proven coach in the division, but I think Joe Judge could change a lot of that narrative with a good year this year.
For me, I would just, if I had to pick one coach that I have a best chance to win a game with, I would take Ron Rivera there. I don't trust McCarthy after, last season. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's like Kyle said, like Joe Judge maybe gets to that point, but right now it's Rivera, it's McCarthy. Those are the top 2 guys in terms of coaches in that division. If we're going through positions real quick, let's assume everybody's healthy. So assume there's no injuries to anybody. Is Dak the best quarterback in that division?
Yes.
I would say so.
Yes.
Running back. I would say this is actually pretty close because I do think all of their number 1s are actually getting very close. But I would argue, I still think it's probably Zeke is the best. I think Saquon is I think it's probably 1A and 1B with Zeke and Saquon. I think they're kind of close up there. Obviously, we're not talking about injury, assuming Saquon's healthy. Miles Sanders, hopefully he'll actually get some touches and they'll actually get to use him a little bit because Miles Sanders is one of those guys. And Antonio Gibson's another guy that I actually think is going to have an awesome year. So I really do think that these are actually 4 really good running backs. I think they're 4 of the better running backs in football. I think you could argue they're probably maybe all 4 top 15 running backs in football, which I think is kind of crazy that they're all in the NFC East. So I think that position you can maybe look at it as some sort of a wash in terms of, Zeke and Saquon are the top 2, and then I think it's Sanders and Gibson, so it's 1A and 1B, and then 2A and 2B. Is that kind of how you guys see it?
I mean, for me, I'd probably put a fully healthy Saquon still above a fully healthy Zeke, so I'd swap those order, and then I don't know which I would order, Gibson or Sanders. So if you call the package deal, if you call those two a package deal at 2A and 2B, then yeah, I agree with you.
But is that the tiers you would have him in? Those
Yes.
two and then two, or would you have one and then two? Like, or you think it's two and then two?
2 and then 2, yeah.
Kyle, you agree?
Yeah, that's definitely the tiers. I do think actually I have the 1A, 1B, and then 2 and then 3 because I'm big on Antonio Gibson, just like you are. So I would put Antonio Gibson at least a tier ahead of. Yeah, I would put him in tier 2
Ahead of Sanders.
Yeah, I would put him in a tier ahead of Miles Sanders.
Yeah, and I think it all comes back to how they plan to use Miles Sanders, because Sanders has been one of those guys that's shown he's been able to both catch and run the ball out of the backfield, but hasn't always gotten that opportunity. But all right, I was going to say something else, but you know what? I think we've talked enough about the NFC East. We gave Kyle his chance to talk about the Giants. We all try to disprove that the Giants were going to win that. But I think at the end of the day, it's like what we did last year. So we bet the Giants. Do you remember what week it was we bet them? I think it was maybe week 5, week 6, something like that.
It was the week before they played the Eagles.
So basically, what we did was the Giants were they were 10-1. They were something to win the division, something crazy. I think they were 2 games back. They had still 4 games against the division, 5 games against the division, something like that. So I think that's actually something you could look for this year, is you could maybe bet, especially if you're doing JP's way and you're betting the 5-1 and somehow the Eagles start off hot and you can get some, other bets in there. But I think there's a chance if you see a team that's maybe 2 games back in the East or even 3 games back in the East, if they've still got 4 or 5 games left to play against that division, it's in terms of like, it's one of those divisions where it's like that lead is never safe. Never, ever safe. And it's just maybe you just take a long shot in the middle of the year and you just kind of pray. And that's what we did with the Giants. Like I said, I think they were 10-1. Obviously, the way that ended, it didn't end well because Doug Peterson, I don't even know how to describe what he did.
He shouldn't coach another football game.
I mean, it was like, I don't understand, and I'm not going to get back into it, but I don't understand how you do that and not. I can see the ownership and them being like, oh yeah, we had no idea he was going to do it, and they did know that he was going to do it because they're at the end of the day they can just fire him and that's that. But for players to not know what was going on, for it to be like, I forgot who it was. Somebody was like, I looked up and Nate was in the game, and it was like, wait, like, you guys didn't know this was like, we all knew this was a possibility. We talked about it, but it was like, I was assuming if this was like a 2-3 touchdown game, like this was a tie game or it was a 3-point game going into half, and fucking Nate fucking Suckfeld comes out and does exactly what his name is. But yeah, that's why Washington didn't win the division last year. They were handed a division that they happened to be in first place at. All right. We'll get back to the total winner of the NFC after this, but we'll get to the AFC first. Let's go through the divisions in the AFC, and then we'll go back to the winners of each conference. We'll start with the AFC North. So I'm a Ravens fan. I think this is it's an interesting year for the Ravens. I don't want to say it's a prove-it year for the Ravens and Lamar, but it's hard to explain because Lamar is going to always have this reputation, similarly to Vic, that he had. Just these guys that are able to run the football and do run the football, they're never going to be consistent throwing the ball. That's just not how they are, because that's not how these guys grew up. That's not how they were taught. But the number one thing about these guys, Kyle, Vic could do it. Lamar can do it. They may not be consistent, but they're one of few quarterbacks that can make every single throw on the football field, right?
Lamar Jackson, yeah, he can make any throw that he wants on the football field, but at the same time, like you said, he's not the most consistent arm. So, but at the same time, he adds the variable of being able to run the ball better than almost any quarterback in the league. So,
almost any player in the league. Forget quarterback. Almost any player in the league, the way that he gets into that open field. But if we'll get into some of the specifics of him, it hurts that Bateman's hurt. Hollywood Brown's obviously been, he's been good at some points. He's been really bad at some points. I think he's proven he's not going to be that number one receiver. But maybe Bateman turns into that guy. Sammy Watkins is, by all accounts, looked great through training camp, but Sammy Watkins is always one wrong step away from being out for 3 or 4 weeks, so you can never rely on that. JP, is it crazy that the Ravens and the Browns are basically the same odds to win this division? The Ravens are plus 120, the Browns are plus 150, Steelers plus 450, Bengals plus 2,800. Am I crazy that, the Ravens, right? It shouldn't be this close. The Ravens are the better team.
Yeah, I think they're the better team, and that's why they're the favorite. I mean, Browns making the playoffs last year and winning a game in the playoffs has to have an effect on that. And what you were just talking about with the Ravens, where you don't know what the situation with the receivers is going to be. Bateman starts out hurt. Hollywood isn't your number one guy, or he is your number one guy, but he's not a number one. I love Rashad Bateman, Minnesota guy, and I thought that was a great pick there. I thought you guys had a really great draft. They're still, I mean, plus 120 seems like a good pick to me, but no, I'm not shocked that they're pretty close in odds. People are still high on Baker after leading him to the playoffs for the first time in forever. I don't know.
I think so. Going back to Bateman for a second, obviously he with the injuries, who knows what's going to happen and how long he's going to be out for. I think he had a surgery. I think they said he's out a couple weeks, maybe back by the beginning of the season, maybe out for who knows. These surgeries, nowadays with surgeries, it's crazy. It's like you get an ACL repair and it's like 3 weeks later you're running. It's like crazy. But I think with him, the key why, and you said that you liked it, it was a good pick. Obviously, you're a Minnesota guy, so that plays into it. But I think the key with Bateman is, and taking injuries aside, because you can never really know if a guy's going to be injury prone or not, he has the ceiling of a guy, and I know this is crazy, of a guy like a Calvin Johnson just because of how he plays and the way he plays. But I think the reason you picked him where you picked him is because, one, what we talked about earlier with Daniel Jones. You've got to give, basically, like I said, not a prove-it year, but a half of a prove-it year for Lamar. You've got to give him every chance to succeed. You brought in Sammy Watkins. Give him this guy that you've drafted in the first round. Now he's got 2 first-round picks. Your past 2 first-round picks in terms of wide receivers between Bateman and Hollywood Brown, even though Hollywood Brown's not a number 1. Hollywood Brown is very easily a good 2 or 3 on the same team as a Rashad Bateman or a Sammy Watkins. But I think the key to picking Bateman, like I said, his ceiling could be as high as a Calvin Johnson, but if he stays healthy, his floor is his frame, the way that he runs routes, he catches almost everything you throw to him. The thing that I like about him is he uses his frame and he likes to catch the ball at the highest point. You see so many receivers that don't know how to do that. Mike Williams is a great example. Mike Williams, he'll go up and catch a ball at its highest point, and then the next play he'll try and catch it in the breadbasket. And it's like these guys that are just so big and they can get up so high, you've got to learn how to catch it at your highest point, because then it takes a 6'2" or 6'3" guy, and all of a sudden you're 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". It really helps do that. I think that helps. Kyle, if we're looking at the Browns as the second favorite in this division, was last year more a successful year because of Baker Mayfield or Kevin Stefanski?
Yeah, I think Kevin Stefanski had a great year, first year as coach. I mean, they completely turned that ship around. I mean, and put Baker in the right place to succeed there. Baker has the weapons to succeed. I mean, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb might be one of the best 2 running back tandems in the whole league. Odell Beckham, I mean, I have my thoughts on him, but he is a talented player when he wants to be, and they have a good receiving core there. I mean, they have the talent to succeed. I mean, I just think the Ravens are still the better overall football team there, but the Browns definitely have the talent to steal a wild card spot.
I was going to say, you were about 2 sentences away from me cutting in and saying, okay, now we've talked about the Browns enough. Now tell me why the Ravens are going to win the division. But I think we all kind of agree that that's the Ravens at plus money. I think we all agree at plus 120. It's a bet too. It's not just a pick. It's at plus money. I think we like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. And it wouldn't be the worst idea to take both of those out. They're both plus money out. I don't see the Steelers cutting in and winning that division.
So if we're looking at, let's go to the AFC South. This is obviously the Texans. The Texans are going to be the Texans, and you'll forget about them. But if we're talking about at the top of the division, you've obviously got what we talked about earlier. You've got even a 3-way in terms of odds in the NFC West between the Rams, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. But in terms of maybe that division, outside of that division, Kyle, this division between the top 2 teams, the Titans and the Colts, this seems like it's probably going to be the closest race between the top 2 teams outside the NFC West, right?
Yeah, it's as close as it gets. And I mean, it might be I like a team at plus money, so I'll take it in the Colts, but it might be just a complete stay away division with just how close it is. It is essentially a pick 'em up top. That's why I think there's value on Indy, but yeah, as close as it gets.
All right, so JP, Kyle and I are gonna both take the Colts. We'll get into that in a second. You're gonna take the Titans, JP. What's the reasoning for taking the Titans?
They got the best player in the division. They got Derrick Henry, and
it's a great answer.
And honestly, they might still have the best quarterback in the division too. So if you're gonna add to that AJ Brown and Julio Jones, I don't know how I can.
Well, they have the best quarterback playing. Deshaun Watson's the best quarterback in that.
Yes,
division.
correct. And Carson Wentz is hurt, and I don't know. You don't know what's happening in Indy. Maybe they're all going to get foot surgery. It's just a team bonding exercise, all getting 6-week foot surgery.
Well, if they're going to do that, you'd rather them get it now than in week like 4 or 5 in the middle of the year. Kyle, we're both going to take the Colts. I think JP mentioned it briefly. The Titans, I do think, are the most likely winner in this division, not by a long shot, but I would say if these teams win this division a combined 100 times, I think the Titans probably win it 55 out of the 100 times, maybe something like that. That's why they are the minus 105 favorite. The Colts are plus 140. Jaguars plus 750. The Texans are plus 3,000, so 30 to 1 for the Texans to win this division. I'm almost going with I've heard great news out of Colts camp in terms of the injury from Carson Wentz. He's recovering well from the surgery. He's already ahead of the timeline. Before his injury, I thought that Carson Wentz was going to be the big game changer for the Colts. I think he's back with Frank Reich. He's looked so bad at times, but he's also been in the midst of an MVP season. Like, we forget that this guy was legitimately one of the best quarterbacks and players in football. He's been ravaged by injuries a couple times. Then he sucked, then his team sucked, and then it kind of just never came back. He had a falling out with the coach, maybe, who knows? Nobody will ever know. Maybe we'll find out at some point. But at the end of the day, that defense, I think the Colts defense is the best in that division. And if Carson Wentz can go back to 85% of what that MVP season was, Kyle, the Colts should be the favorite to win this division, right?
Yeah, and I don't think he was ever in the best situation in Philly either, like you mentioned. I mean, you said he sucked a year, which he did, but then his team sucked. I mean, he had little to no real big wide receiver weapons to pass to there. So for a while, I mean, they kept dropping every ball that he threw to him essentially. So he was in a tough situation there. Also wasn't necessarily getting the protection that he wanted. So I think that he's in a much better situation, Indy, to prove himself. He's got T.Y. Hilton. He's got some weapons around him. And then also, crazy side note here, there's been some positive things out of that camp about Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger. I'm not saying that they're gonna take the starting spot from him. Absolutely not. But, I mean, if he's not playing for a week or two, I think they could possibly step in and maybe win a game.
I will go on the record and say, as somebody who's watched plenty of college football, somebody who is a fan of Maryland, and they had a home and home with Texas, Jacob Eason maybe. Sam Ehlinger will never, maybe he'll win one game if he needs to, maybe, but he'll never be a successful quarterback in the NFL. I'll go on that. There's guys you can just watch play, and it's like these guys might have it. And I actually agree with you with Jacob Eason. In college, he looked like it. It seems like in camp, he's looked pretty well. Ehlinger seems like that guy that maybe he'll look all right in camp. Maybe he'll look all right in practice. I don't know. You just watch the game, and it's like he doesn't have. Like, some guys just have it. And that was almost my argument with Mitch when he came out, is Mitch has all of the tools to be one of the best quarterbacks in football. I just don't know if he has it, and I don't know how to describe it. Like, some guys, just like Russell Wilson has it. Aaron Rodgers has it. Obviously, they have talent, but they also have it. Lamar Jackson, maybe he has it. Who knows? He's got talent, but who knows if he's got, like, that kind of thing. Josh Allen is kind of right on that cusp of being like he's got it. Mahomes, he's got it. Obviously, these guys have talent, like I've said, but it's like you can't really explain it. Carson Wentz, if you were to call me crazy, I think he's got it. I think when Carson Wentz is in that right state of mind, Carson Wentz really is able to be one of, I don't know, a top 10 quarterback in football, maybe something like that. Go through the list, maybe somewhere in that range. Go ahead, Kyle.
And I think that's you said the right state of mind. I think that's the it that you're looking for, like how to describe it. I think it's the mental side of the game. I mean, I mean,
And it's all about where he went. It's all about that. All has to do with it. If Carson Wentz is in Chicago, I'd be saying how bad Carson Wentz is.
Yeah, that's true as well. I mean, he's being put in a great place to succeed. So, I think we're looking at a possible division winner here. I don't know if I would call him the best quarterback in the division, but he is in a position to succeed, which he hasn't been in a long time.
I think if healthy, Carson Wentz is in a position to be the best quarterback in the division. I think that's pretty easy. You can say I don't think you can say he's the best quarterback in the division, but I think Carson Wentz's best is up there with what we've seen from Tannehill. Obviously, assuming Deshaun Watson's not playing this year for the Texans. Let's get to the AFC East. A division that has been dominated for the better part of 2 decades by the Patriots. The Bills won it last year. JP, I'll start with you here. Do the Patriots take back this division? Do the Bills actually? Let me get through the odds real quick, and then I'll let you answer that. Because you guys can also remind me as we're doing this, because I try and get suggestions from people along the way as we do it. And I always think people watch this on YouTube and they like have everything in front of them like we do. And then I realize like guys listen like in the car and on podcasts and like iTunes and that stuff, and they don't. So it's always easier to go through the odds and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, guys, if you ever have any suggestions when we're doing things, we don't always necessarily think about all of that kind of stuff. We can, trying to get it towards everybody else. But the Bills are the favorite. They're minus 150. Like I said, they won the division last year. The Dolphins are plus 350. The Patriots are plus 350. The Jets are plus 2,500. JP, as I was saying before, are the Bills repeating? Do the Patriots take back the division, or is it time for the Dolphins or the Jets to begin their reign as division champions?
I want to elaborate on what you just said. We don't really ever think. So yeah, suggestions from anyone are really great. I think the Bills repeat here. I hate his guts, but Stephon Diggs is still top.
I will mute your microphone. You say another bad word about him. I will mute your microphone if you say another bad word about Stephon Diggs.
Me hating him is not saying a bad word about him. I'm saying he's a top 3 receiver in the entire National Football League. And you've still got the best quarterback in the division. And they suck for fantasy, but Bills running backs get the job done most of the time. I still think they've got the best defense in the league. In their division, excuse me. And I don't think the Pats are going to take back their throne. I think they can push for a wild card. I don't believe in the Dolphins. Maybe the Jets will win more than 2 games this year. But to me, it's still the Bills' division to lose.
Kyle, same page for you. You taking the Bills, or you like somebody else?
Completely same page. I think it's the Bills' division to lose here. They've got the best team in the division. I mean, I don't know what the hell the Patriots are going to do at quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see, but looks like are they going with Cam week 1?
They've gone back and forth. It sounds like they are, I think, but it sounds like it's probably going to be a similar situation to maybe like in San Fran, or Chicago, kind of all these positions where it's like we do have a guy that we can play for a couple weeks if we need to. If you're Bill Belichick, if you think Mac Jones is 75% of being where he needs to be, do you start him week 1 or do you give Cam some time?
If he's 75% of where he needs to be, I mean, I would definitely give Cam a few games. We've seen the situation before where a vet starts a few games and then the rookie slides in midway through the season. I mean, it might put them in a interesting situation, but I think that's the way to go.
So, and I think when you're thinking about a decision like that, and like we talked about that a different couple teams are going to be making with guys that have veteran quarterbacks, but also with a young rookie. Dan Orlovsky, so he's a ESPN guy for those who don't know. I really think that he explained this well the other day. He was talking about when and where to throw a quarterback in a right situation. And he said it's not when to do it, it's when to not do it. So there's 3 times when you don't do it. One is almost what the Bengals situation was last year, where the team is so bad around him that you're actually afraid that he's either going to physically get hurt or mentally and just it's going to break him. And the 2 important things on an offense for a quarterback your offensive line, and your receivers. So if you have one good group of positions, you play them. That's kind of what the mentality is. Is it, hey, maybe your offensive line, this is what the Bengals was last year. Maybe your offensive line stinks, which they did, but you've got receivers that you can throw the ball to. So it's like, all right, this is a chance we can throw him in there because he's got some weapons. So you don't want to throw a quarterback in there, obviously, if there's no offensive line or no receivers. The other thing is the coach. So a guy like Kyle Shanahan, you trust much more with a guy like Trey Lance than even like a guy like Robert Saleh. Nothing against Robert Saleh, but he's never proven he's been able to develop any of these quarterbacks, been able to do anything like that. If you have a coach that you trust where you're going to do it, the GM is going to, because a lot of times in these situations, there's differences for the NFL team. Some coaches work for GMs, some GMs work for coaches. That's just how these structures are built. And sometimes GMs are going to tell coaches, like, this is the guy you're starting. This is the guy that's playing. This is who is playing. But in a situation like San Fran, I don't know this is exactly how it is. But if you've got a guy like Kyle Shanahan, it almost seems like, okay, like you're trusting your coach to make that decision if you're a guy like John Lynch. I think that's key where we're talking about. And when you're looking at the Patriots in terms of Mac Jones, the coach, there's no question arguing. I mean, if the talent is around him, Bill Belichick is going to put Mac Jones in a position to succeed. If Mac Jones has the talent, I don't think coaching is ever going to be an issue in New England while Belichick's up there. The question is, are the receivers good enough around him? I don't know if they necessarily are, but I don't think the offensive line is bad enough either, where it's like you're throwing this guy into a bad team with bad offensive line and bad receivers. I don't think they're the best, but I think it's a situation where I think if he's 75% of what you think he is, I think you start him week 1. I think maybe they do what San Fran might try and do with Garoppolo is you play Cam for a bit and maybe a team needs him. Maybe you do that and you play him and you trade him week 4 or 5, and then Mac Jones has gotten 4 or 5 weeks. Cam seems like one of those guys, contrary to popular belief, that actually seems like a good quarterback to be a starter for a young backup to learn behind. Because Cam's one of those guys that he's very weird. He's very quirky. But when you hear the mic'd up stuff from him, when you watch how he reads defenses, it's not always about how he progresses through his reads, but sometimes he'll get up to the line of scrimmage. He won't always change a play, but he'll tell you, it basically knows what he's looking for, and it's a good guy to have around the film study where it's like maybe like, hey, like maybe he doesn't know exactly what he's going to change the play to or how he's going to audible out of it, but you can sit in the film room and be like, hey, this is where the mic is. This is where this guy's going. It's cover 2. The safety's going over the top. This is what's going to happen on the defense. And then maybe you've got a guy like Mac Jones, or you've got these coaches in here that help you figure that out. I actually think Cam's a good guy. He seems like teammates like him. Seems like it's a guy where, there's never Cam thinks he's better than you. You've always seen that with some of the guys, especially like a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers situation. I think Cam's a good guy to learn under, which I think makes this a unique situation if Mac Jones isn't fully there. But with that being said, I just think the Patriots at plus 350, are they the most likely winner of this division? No. But I think there's value there in plus 350. You've got the best coach in the division. Maybe you could argue Sean McDermott's getting up there, but for obviously what career long and what they've done, Bill Belichick is the best coach in that division. I just think 3.5 to 1 is a crazy price for the Patriots. And I'm seeing some books. I know that they have the same odds as the Dolphins do to win this division. I'm not sold on the Dolphins either. I mean, I'm seeing books the Patriots minus 120 to finish above the Dolphins. I mean, that seems like a bet that minus 140, minus 150, I'd almost pay something like that. Because even bad Patriots years, they never really seem to go crazy bad. So yeah, like I said, you guys are picking the Bills to win the division. I do think they're the most likely winner of that division. But 3.5 to 1 for the Patriots seems like some good value. Let's get to the West. AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs. They're the best team in football. Yes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've improved their one minor weakness, which was their offensive line with some of the transactions they made in the offseason. And then, so the best got better in a way.
I know they took my offensive lineman.
Yeah. So yeah, and this division, it's them and a bunch of mediocrity. So I think they just run through it again.
That was an indirect swap. Y'all can take Orlando Brown. We'll take Sammy Watkins, and hopefully we have enough offensive linemen. You guys have enough receivers. We'll both benefit from this, and we'll see you guys in the AFC Championship game again. That's almost how that seemed like that worked out. JP, I think you're going to pick the Chiefs to win this division too. Obviously, they're minus 300, so there's not much in terms of value there. we can get into a couple of the other teams. I think, the Chargers are plus 550, the Broncos plus 700, Raiders are plus 2,000. Before you tell me why the Chiefs are going to win the division, I guess if you're going to bet another team, it's got to be the Chargers just by default, right?
I don't know. I'm biased because I'm mad at Justin Herbert for winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. I guess I like what the Broncos have done in the offseason, but I don't know if that's worth. I mean, I don't. The Chargers should be the second favorite to me.
So let me ask you this: close your eyes, and I tell you the Chiefs aren't winning the division. And when you close your eyes, who do you see is winning the division?
It has to be the Chargers. I mean, they have the only other quarterback, right?
And I think obviously adding how do I put this nicely? I was gonna say competent head coach, but to say Anthony Lynn was even close to competent is, I mean they've gone from this is like I'm trying to make an analogy. All right, let's pretend like we're in the Olympics and we're skiing, whether you're doing cross country or whether we're downhill skiing, whatever we are. And we had this guy from the Bahamas, and he was all right. And now we're going to the Olympics, and we got this dude from Norway. Like, that's what the Chargers are now. Is like, we went from this guy who doesn't even know how to get the right number of people on the field to kick a field goal versus a coach who can actually call plays and knows the offensive and defensive side of the football. I like guys that are defensive-minded guys that also learn how to coach the offense. Kyle, is there a chance that Brandon Staley is the best coach in this division?
Come on. Andy Reid's the best coach in this division.
I was like trying to put like a little piece of cheese out, see if the mouse would bite it, and you didn't bite it. I tried to get you to bite it. I agree though. I do think. But Andy Reid's almost one of those guys where it's like he's not there yet, but he seems like one of those guys that's going to coach until he like literally dies. Like Andy Reid does 3 things in life. He coaches, he sleeps, and he eats barbecue. Like that's all Andy Reid does. Then I guess burgers, but burgers kind of part of barbecue. That's all that he does.
I went to his favorite barbecue place in Kansas City, Q39. It is as good as advertised, by the way.
Everyone says that. They're like, I can't believe it's actually as good. It's like, what do you mean? Like, of course Andy Reid's barbecue place is as good as advertised. Like, you think Andy Reid? Look at him. He is a Super Bowl winning coach. He obviously knows how to eat barbecue. You think he's gonna put his name and reputation behind a place that isn't good? Of course, that's his number one thing. He'd rather have that restaurant win an award than win a Super Bowl again, probably. But all right, let's go to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win this division. Is there really anything to kind of say about the Broncos or the Raiders? I don't think there's really much to say, right?
Not a lot. I mean, I still like Josh Jacobs. I think he can do well.
The issue is they have like 8 running backs now. They've added every single running back that's played at Alabama. They have Kenyon Drake now. They have Bo Scarborough now. I think they have somebody else. I mean, it's just like John Gruden is like, he like you can't give him a toy because when you give him one toy, he wants like 4 toys and he wants to play with all those toys equally. It's like, no, you have the best toy. Just use the best toy. Like you don't need to use all, like you have Josh Jacobs and he just refuses to use Josh Jacobs. I mean, I'll go to my grave. I really think Josh Jacobs is a top 5 running back in football. Not in terms of production or what I think in terms of the talent and in terms of what Josh Jacobs is able to do, especially now that he's learning to catch the ball. He was able to catch the ball in college somewhat, and then all these Alabama running backs. I don't understand what happens because all these Alabama running backs in college, they're like these guys that you throw them a little screen pass and they're gone. Guy like Kenyon Drake. And then you get to the NFL and it's like Kenyon Drake's on the Cardinals. Like, what do we need to do? It's like, we need to sign Chase Edmonds because we need a pass catching running back. It's like, no. Like, have you seen what Kenyon Drake did in college? Like, you have a pass catching running back. And then these Alabama running backs, they get to the NFL and they have decent careers as running backs, but it's like they don't have that pass catching ability. And it's so crazy because it's like a guy like Gruden, we've seen from Monday Night Football. Like once you put a couple thoughts in his brain starts running wild. And once that brain's gone, good luck trying to get that thing back. Which I think is part of why they're always capable of winning a division. John Gruden's always capable of pulling a 14-3 season or something like that out of his ass because it's just that's what they are. But they're also very capable of going 3-14. So all right, let's get to how do we want to do this? Let's go through conference winners. So Kyle, I'll let you go first. Who is your conference winner in the NFC? Who is your conference winner in the AFC? Don't give me your Super Bowl winner yet. Just give me your Super Bowl matchup.
Okay, so my conference winner in the AFC is the exact team we just talked about here, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, we talked about it. In what, in my opinion, was the best team in football, just got better, and it's a Patrick Mahomes revenge year. Dude is going to be out for absolute blood this year. So the Chiefs are definitely my AFC winner, and then my NFC winner, another team obviously we talked about earlier, the LA Rams. I mean, Matt Stafford's going to make such a difference compared to Jared Goff. Jared Goff was the definition of mediocre at quarterback, and now you're bringing a guy in who's made chicken salad out of chicken shit for his entire career, essentially. So I think he's finally going to have the weapons to succeed, and he's going to bring that all the way to the Super Bowl.
JP, who's your conference winners?
If my conference winners are correct, I won't know what to do with myself. But in the NFC, the Packers are plus 600, and in an Aaron Rodgers revenge year, we thought it was going to be last year, and it could have been if they had decided to, if he had decided to actually run for a touchdown instead of throw for an incomplete pass and not kick a field goal. But 6-1 to win the NFC. I don't think the Bucs are worth, plus 275. That doesn't seem there to me. I like the Packers at plus 600 to win that conference. And then for the AFC, I'm also going to take the second favorite. I like the Bills. I think the Bills have the pieces they need to go on a real run here. And again, I don't like it because I don't like them. But they were right there last year. They competed with the Chiefs in that conference championship. And I think they have what it takes to get past them this year.
So I'll be different because I agree with Kyle. My picks, I'd be the Rams and the Chiefs. I'll go a little different just to be different for the podcast. I'm going to call me a homer. I'll say it's going to be the Rams and the Ravens. I do think when it comes down to it, it's obviously the Ravens are always 1 or 2 injuries away from being like a dumpster fire of a team. But I think it's the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. So you guys, Kyle, you're on the Chiefs. JP, you took the Bills. I'll take the Ravens. I think if one of you had taken the Bills or the Ravens, I would take the other one. I just think those are the top 3 teams in the AFC, assuming everything goes according to plan and people stay healthy, which it never does and people never do. But the Rams, I said it before, I think they have the best offensive player in that division, not the conference, in their division with Stafford under Sean McVay. I think they have the best defensive player in football. I really think the Rams are going to have a really, really, really strong year. All right, Kyle, you gave us the conference winners. You gave us the Super Bowl matchup. Who's the winner?
By the way, also, second note on you picking the Ravens to win the AFC. I mean, Lamar Jackson is 0-3 against Patrick Mahomes, so hopefully you avoid the Chiefs in that situation. But yeah, my pick to win the Super Bowl is the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I've talked them up for the last 10-15 minutes of this podcast here. I feel like Mahomes revenge year, best got better, all the same points again. Kansas City Chiefs are my winners.
Chiefs to beat the Rams in the Super Bowl is 40-1 if that's a bet you want to make. So obviously that's always a bet if you make that kind of bet and you get to the Super Bowl with the 2 teams that you bet there and you have one team winning versus the other team. That's always a position where at the very least you should hedge out where there's some sort of a profit because you've got some crazy, crazy value. JP, who's winning the Super Bowl for you?
In my personal nightmare of a Super Bowl, I'm taking the Bills over the Packers. The Aaron Rodgers revenge tour ends here. I think Josh Allen just keeps having he's improved every year, and I think he has what it takes to lead the Bills here. And I say what you want about Rodgers, if he's not the best quarterback in football, then he's the second best quarterback in football. But I think that I still don't trust their defense against the Bills, and I'm taking the Bills.
And as we're doing this, the Patriots and the Eagles are playing now. Obviously, it's preseason, so it's not, whatever. We were just talking about the Cam Newton, Mac Jones situation. Cam Newton, first drive of the game, 4 for 4, 56 yards, let him down the field, scored a touchdown, 7-0. So, obviously, if you're a Patriots fan, I know it's preseason, I know it's the Eagles. That's what you want to see Cam out there just, looking like Cam Newton of old, just moving the ball down the field. Doesn't matter. He's always one of those guys, doesn't matter how the ball gets in the end zone. He finds a way to get the ball in the end zone. That's, what he's done. All right, so if we're getting to my prediction, so I'm going to go I'll take, in terms of betting or in terms of the odds, I like the Rams to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So it's basically how Kyle had it. I like it the other way around. But if we're going, the predictions that I made of the Ravens to get there to be different, then I think it's the Rams to beat the Ravens. So if you're looking at the Rams to beat the Chiefs, it's plus 5,000, so 50-1 for the Rams to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I'm looking to see the Rams to beat the Ravens. Okay, so the Ravens to beat the Rams and the Rams to beat the Ravens are both 90-1. So if you're picking a Ravens-Rams Super Bowl, it's plus 9,000. Doesn't matter which way whether you think the Ravens win that, the Rams win that. So that's always one of those things you could bet it like that. And then, like I said, you hedge when it gets to that point. All right, so we've gone over divisions, we've gone over conferences, we've gone over the Super Bowl. Kyle, the MVP of the NFL season. Who's the MVP?
God, the way this was set up, you just had me talking about the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes for the last 4 segments here. I'm going Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I think he's the best quarterback in the league. Stats wise, he puts up the best numbers. He puts up the best numbers consistently. He's gonna do it again. I mean, bet. You're about
to notice a trend, because you said that I was making you do that. This is called drilling something into somebody's head. So you like the Chiefs and you like Mahomes. So I'm making sure that you get your point across, because now next we're going to JP, and JP's told you who's winning the Super Bowl. So JP, who's winning MVP?
Well, now that we've talked about Chiefs and the Bills and the Rams, let's talk about Allen and Mahomes and probably Stafford, the way you've been talking about him earlier this year. I like Josh Allen 10-1 to win the MVP. If he's going to have the type of season I think he is, and he's going to do what I just said he was going to do, then the only logical conclusion is to say that he's going to win the MVP. And he was close last year. It was a 3-horse race, Mahomes, Rodgers, and Allen for most of the season.
And yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I'm going to take Stafford for MVP. Once again, do I think he's the most likely winner of MVP? No, it's probably a guy like Mahomes. But Stafford's 18-1, 15-1, depending on the book. I got him at plus 1,800, so 18-1. There's just so much upside there. And I get it. There is some downside there because, once again, he is injury prone. But Stafford, he'll have a broken collarbone, and he'll be out there like nothing's wrong. So I do like Stafford there. Coach of the year, I'm going to stay with the same thing. I think if Stafford is going to have as good of a year as I think he is, he's going to get credit, but the credit obviously always goes to a guy like Sean McVay, because something like that, we always talk about how Sean McVay, you probably saw the best Jared Goff because Sean McVay got the best Jared Goff out of him. So if he's going to get the best Matt Stafford, there's a chance Sean McVay wins Coach of the Year. JP, I've got a quarterback and a head coach from the same team winning MVP and Coach of the Year. Surely you don't have the same thing, right?
Well, I mean, if you think the Bills are going to win their first Super Bowl ever, and Josh Allen's going to win the MVP, then who do you think is going to win Coach of the Year? Because
Nick Sirianni.
I don't think it's going to be McVay then. So I'm taking Sean McDermott. I think I got him at plus 18.
I think is what it is.
On Bovada at least. I don't know what it is at other places, but I'm taking McDermott. If the Bills are going to win, then you can't name anybody else Coach of the Year.
And Kyle, you have an interesting strategy. You have a team that has a chance to be good, but you also have a coach of a team that has a chance to be really, really bad, right?
Yeah, so the direction I went with Coach of the Year was a team that I thought could possibly slide into the playoffs and exceed their expectations. I mean, you can't give Andy Reid Coach of the Year because he just has all the talent possible around him. Honestly, I think the same thing with it's hard for someone to call Sean McVay the Coach of the Year if he has all the talent around him. I think I went Brian Flores at plus 1,600 because it's a team that was just on that fringe last year. I mean, And it's all about Tua getting over that hump, and if Brian Flores can get him, and if the coaching staff could get him there, and Flores could stay focusing on that, keeping that defense real good, then I mean, I think if they get into the playoffs, he will be coach of the year. That's where I'm at.
All right, defensive player of the year. I'll make it short and quick. I've said it before. Aaron Donald wins defensive player of the year unless it's just time to give it to somebody else. So for me, Aaron Donald plus 500, 5-1, maybe the best defensive player this game's ever seen, certainly close to it. Very well. I think I would say the majority of people would say that Aaron Donald's the best player in football. I think you've got a couple people that are biased on a couple different people, but I think Aaron Donald, year after year, has proven he's the best player in football. Certainly the most dominant force in football. You guys are both going to take somebody who is on that rise, a guy who has a chance to be that next level starter. And maybe it starts this year. I won't say starts this year. Maybe he reaches that peak this year or reaches that level this year. But maybe it does take a couple more years, but he's just slowly getting to that top 3, top 2 player in football. I'll let you guys talk about it. You guys like Chase Young at 10-1.
So, I mean, I think it's a safe bet to assume that Chase Young at some point wins the defensive player of the year. So if you're going to keep getting 10-1, just take him every year, see what happens. I like him this year. I think going by your strategy, it is time to give it to someone other than Aaron Donald. And Chase Young is that player who last year he was one of the top. What top would you say Chase Young was? Top 5 defensive player in the league?
I would say he was a top 5 front 7 guy in the defensive front 7 guy.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. But I think if he improves this year, which usually you would see that kind of second-year player, you would expect to see him improve on last year. If he improves on last year the way I think he could, then 10-1 is great value for me.
Yeah, same thoughts on my end. I mean, if he's able to improve as much as sometimes we see a sophomore slump, but I think in this case, we're going to see him improve even further. And he was one of the top defensive players in the year last year. So if he could get to that level, even though Aaron Donald might be more talented, I think Chase Young is going to win defensive player of the year because he's going to grab a ton of eyes. He's going to have eye-popping stats, especially maybe against that Giants offensive line at some point. He might end up winning a bet that I have later for against that Giants offensive line. But yeah, I think Chase Young is good value at plus 1,000.
All right, so let's go offensive player of the year. I don't even really think there's necessarily much to kind of go over with these guys. I think they're almost kind of, I don't want to say obvious choices, but guys that there's not much explanation needed behind it. I know I'm a broken record, but if I like Stafford to win MVP at 18-1, Stafford to be the offensive player of the year at 25-1, it's a higher price to be the offensive player of the year. I know that there's a chance you can be MVP and not win offensive or defensive player of the year. I just think there's value there at plus 2,500. You guys are both going with running backs in the NFC South. JP, you like Christian McCaffrey 10-1. Obviously, we talked about it. Christian McCaffrey is the top, 2, 3, 4 maybe running back in football. I think him and McCaffrey are both in that top 5 range. I think there's other guys that have a chance to get there. We've talked earlier about guys like Saquon that certainly have that potential to get up there. But it's, if you're looking at a team this year, you're looking for a running back this year, you'd much rather have a guy like a Kamara or a McCaffrey, guys that have basically proven and been able to stay healthy. So unless you guys really have much to add there, I mean, you're at McCaffrey 10-1. Kyle, you like Kamara at 16-1. Is there not really much else to add, right?
I mean, I'm just going to add, I said McCaffrey was the most talented player in the division earlier, but I also said it was marginal, and I'm getting 600 extra points on Kamara, so I'm going to take that.
Yeah, it's not a bad play. I still think if you're going to take offensive player of the year, I'm taking the guy who's on a worse offense. So if you're going to give some of the credit for the Saints offense to a Jameis or a Michael Thomas if he ever decides to get healthy and come back, I like it better where McCaffrey is the only guy. He's carrying Sam Darnold and he's carrying the Panthers. So that's why I'm taking McCaffrey.
All right, defensive rookie of the year. We've got two more. We're going to do defensive rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year, and then we each have a couple season-long bets that we like, and then we'll get out of here. I know we're getting close to – we tried to make this about a 90-minute podcast, at least for the first week. It probably won't be this long every week, but obviously a lot to go over when you're trying to go over all this preseason stuff. Defensive rookie of the year, JP, I'll start with you. Tell me who you're picking and tell me why.
So I'm taking Micah Parsons. He's plus 450 last I checked. I think he was really, really, really good in college. The last time we saw him, he's had a year off to train and keep improving himself without taking any injuries. And he's gonna have a chance to be the guy on that Cowboys defense. And he's gonna be trying to take advantage of hopefully some weaker offenses in the NFC East. Sorry, Kyle. But I think he has so much opportunity, and if I have to pick a rookie, then I'm sorry for picking the favorite, but that's what I'm going with.
Kyle, as a former Hurricane, of course, you're taking a former Hurricane to become defensive rookie of the year. Which one and why?
Yeah, I was always going to pick a Kane to win this award with both of them going in the first round, but I'm going to lean Jalen Phillips at plus 1,000 just because, I mean, he's an absolute athletic freak of nature. I mean, if you saw his 40 time, I forget what it was exactly, but it was ridiculous. I mean, he's going to get off the line fast. We saw him last year cause some havoc, but I mean, and the thing about and the thing about Greg Rousseau is he was off for, I mean, he's been off for a whole year. Obviously, there is the argument that he was getting better, but there also is the argument that there might be a little bit of rust on him when it comes to playing games at football speed. So I'm gonna go Jalen Phillips out of my two Canes.
Once again, maybe I'm taking a homer pick, but I do think there is some logic behind it. I like Jason Owe at plus 2,200 at defensive rookie of the year. This goes back to what we talked about before. He's one of those guys that had every physical ability in college, didn't have any sacks his last year. It's one of those guys where it's like, you just got to figure out how to teach him how to play football, and he's just so close to learning how to play football. You got to teach him how to do it, and he could be one of those guys that could be a star. And it goes back to, like I said, what we said earlier, it depends on these situations these guys go in. Carson Wentz going to a situation like Indianapolis or Chicago, it gives you more faith that they can develop it. The Ravens, historically, may be the best organization at developing these, especially these defensive linemen, these linebackers, these pass rushers, these kind of guys. There are always these guys that they find. This is obviously a higher round pick, but they find guys later in the rounds and they just turn them into football players. Everything coming out of Ravens training camp is like, hey, we thought it was going to take about a year and a half to figure out how to teach this guy football. Seems like it might have taken 2 weeks. Seems like this guy might actually already know how to play football, which if he does, that is a scary thought because there's like we always talk about like combine speed and combine looks and all of that. I mean, there's just certain guys you look at and you're just like DK Metcalf's a great example. Just look at this guy and you're like, if this guy knows how to play football, like I'm fucked. Like there's literally nothing I can do to stop this man. Like if he's gonna run by me, he's gonna run by me. If he's gonna run over me, he's gonna run over me. Like that's just some of these guys. That's just how they are. Staying on that same thought in terms of players going to the right position, your younger players going to the right position. Offensive rookie of the year, I like Mac Jones at 11-1. I think, like I said, there's a chance that maybe he doesn't play enough or he doesn't even play at all. Who knows what they're going to end up doing. Maybe it's, money down the drain if he doesn't play much. But I think if he gets on the field, he's looked good so far. And once again, goes to a situation in New England with a guy like Belichick. If Mac Jones has some sort of ability or whatever, Belichick's going to put him in the best position to succeed. I'm going to go to both of you guys because you guys have both decided that you're going to take the team that is the best at developing quarterbacks. And you're going to take their offensive rookie of the year because you guys both like Justin Fields because the Bears are so good at developing quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You guys are both so ready to talk about how the Bears are going to develop Justin Fields. I can see it. Kyle, tell me why the Bears are going to make Justin Fields an offensive rookie of the year.
I mean, it might. They're not the best at developing quarterbacks, that's for damn sure. But I think Justin Fields is the most ready to play right now out of any of those rookies, besides maybe Trevor Lawrence. But Trevor Lawrence is a big favorite and in a even worse situation down in Jacksonville to put up numbers. So I do think that Justin Fields is in the best position to win this award. He's in the best position to, like you said, Mac Jones is in the best position to develop, but he might not play. So I'm going to go with the guy that's actually going to play and is NFL ready, and Justin Fields at plus 500.
JP, same logic.
Yeah, I don't want to steal all of his thoughts, but he is, to me, he was close to the most pro-ready quarterback coming out of the draft. Like he said, Trevor Lawrence. Fields is in a much better situation than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has to carry the Jaguars. Fields, compared to Mac Jones, I think he'll start sooner because I know that Cam Newton can do what he's currently doing in the preseason and look good. And if you look good in there and you keep looking good in the first couple of weeks, it's easier for Belichick to say, let's not start Mac yet. I don't think Andy Dalton will give Matt Nagy that opportunity. I think that I think he's not going to. He might have a good game or two, but by week 4, I think Fields is the quarterback, and I think he's ready to probably, beat up on the Vikings' poor secondary.
All right, let's go. I'm just going to go through. We called them best bets. They're not really our best bets. They're just kind of some bets that we like in terms of the value and the futures and all of that and everything going forward. JP, I'll just let you go through yours. You've got 3 bets that you like. In terms of, I don't know if there's really much to go over. I think we can kind of just go through them real quick. So it's Dalvin Cook, most rushing touchdowns this year, 5-1. Zach Wilson, most interceptions, 9-1. And then Dalvin Cook over 13.5 rushing touchdowns, plus Adam Thielen over 9.5 receiving touchdowns. That's plus 275. Anything to kind of go over that? I mean, there's just,
I mean, it's for the first one, Dalvin, most rushing touchdowns. I think he was either on pace to do it last year or he did it last year. And I know Derrick Henry scores a lot of flipping touchdowns, but if Dalvin can stay healthy and only miss a game or 2, I think he has a really great chance to do that, and he should be the favorite to me. So 5-1 is great odds. Zach Wilson isn't the favorite to lead the league in interceptions for some reason, so I would not mind that at 9-1. And then the last one was just kind of a homer pick, but both of those guys score touchdowns, and they don't get. Thielen isn't a guy that's going to get the yards that Jefferson gets, but he's going to catch more touchdowns, which is why they're both really annoying for fantasy. But if you can give me that kind of bet, then that's probably something I'm going to take. Actually, I think I already took it.
Kyle, you've got 3 bets. What are the 3 bets that you like, and any reasoning if there is any?
Yeah, so Colts to make the playoffs minus 120. I mean, I have them winning the division, so why not take them to make the playoffs at minus 120 as well? Stephon Diggs, most receiving yards at plus 850. I mean, Josh Allen has an arm, to say the least, and Diggs is a deep threat. So I think they'll connect a lot for some big yardage passes and make that happen. And then this is just a funny one to me. I saw it listed on DraftKings, and I was like, this bet's absolutely hilarious that they even have this listed. Chase Young with the fastest recorded sack of the season at plus 900. I mentioned that he might win a bet that I'll list later, but against the Giants' bad offensive line, this is the one, the fastest recorded sack of the year.
So that was just, you enjoyed that kind of a bet, and you're like, I'm just going to make it.
Yeah.
I like that. It's great. I agree with you. Colts to make the playoffs was actually one of mine. I actually think that's a good bet. I do think they're a team that, even if they don't win the division, they've got enough games against some pretty bad teams where they're able to kind of, put together enough of a record where they could win the division. I mean, make the playoffs and not necessarily win the division. Washington to win the AFC or the NFC East. I talked about this earlier. It's plus 250. Like I said, it does scare me that nobody ever wins a division, hasn't won that division back-to-back since 2004. But I just think there's great value there. I just don't know why they're at plus 250 compared to some of the other prices in that. We talked about this earlier. Patriots to win the AFC East plus 350 once again. Are they the most likely winner? Maybe not, probably not, but just some crazy value for what you're getting as the best coach in that division. And a team that still is going to have a fairly good defense, a team that's got a chance to have a good quarterback. Maybe doesn't have the weapons that they need, but could, Belichick is always one of those guys that he won 11 games with Matt Castle. I mean, Belichick's going to find a way to win games if the team's halfway decent. Bears team total over 6.5, minus 170. I think the Bears are going to be halfway decent this year. Obviously, you guys do too if you think Justin Fields is going to win Rookie of the Year. So for the Bears to win 7 games, obviously remember it's a 17-game season this year, so that's a 7-10 year for the Bears. You are laying the minus 170, but I think it's worth it. And if I'm going to give you the minus 170 to lay, I'll give you a big bet also to throw in there. We were talking about this earlier. I've been watching some film on some guys that maybe don't watch this film as much on, and you don't really always know what you're watching. Sometimes you do, and you got guys that Brian Baldinger's a great, where he'll tell us straight exactly what's going on, what kind of responsibilities are, and all of that stuff. But I've watched over the past week or so a couple highlight packages. I mean, I don't think people understand how good Fred Warner is. I understand he just got paid. I understand people really think that he's like one of those top. I mean, Fred Warner is. I was telling you guys earlier. I mean, he is a guy that whether it is a running play or it's 40 yards down the field, I mean, he's making the tackle. I mean, Fred Warner is around the football in every single play. Obviously got rewarded. He got paid. He's 80 to 1 to be the defensive player of the year. Do I think he's be defensive player of the year? No, but he's 80 to 1. I mean, this guy that just got paid, this guy who can literally do everything that you ask out of a linebacker. He's able to stop the run. He controls the defense. When we were talking about this earlier, the 49ers, the issue is the defense should still be good, but who knows without Salah how good, who knows how important he was to whether it was the play calling or getting him ready, whatever. Who knows how important that was. The only reason I think that defense still has a good chance of being exactly what we were is because Fred Warner is that guy that you want in the middle of your defense, telling people what to do, telling where they need to be, a guy that in the locker room you can tell has the respect from his teammates. I think that's also important, especially for a defensive player of the year, is have some sort of leadership qualities or have some sort of that, because defense, it's all about gaining that momentum and bringing that momentum to your offense and letting your offense score points, because we've seen all the time the Bears for years. I mean, you can get stops for days. If your offense doesn't score, nobody's going to talk about you guys. You've got to put your offensive team in position to succeed. And you see these defensive guys, they get in these quarterbacks' ears. They get in these offensive coaches' ears. We gave you the ball at the 50-yard line. Go get fucking points. And Fred Warner kind of seems like that kind of guy. Hey, we just worked our ass off to get you guys to where you're at right now. Go get us some fucking points. And I think that's a guy that can really motivate a team, motivate a defense. And, if the 49ers are going to be halfway decent this year, I really think Fred Warner is obviously going to be a big part of what they do and what he needs to do for them this year. I think that's kind of everything that we have. I know we're kind of getting close to an hour and a half from what we've done. I know Kyle hasn't eaten since Tuesday, so he's probably starving. But anybody who knows me knows I don't care. No, I'm just kidding. Is there anything else you guys wanted to go over before we kind of wrap this thing up?
I think we touched on everything here. I mean, and I'm ready to eat, so that helps too.
I was going to say, yeah, I think we've kind of gone over it all. It's we'll do, so I'll just go through quickly what my content schedule is going to be like and what our content schedule is going to be like. And who knows, maybe other people will be writing some other articles for me as well this year. But so what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is we'll do the podcast every week. So the goal is to do this podcast every single week, try and record it on Wednesday nights, get it out either on a late Wednesday night, early on Thursday, give you guys some listening material for the week ahead, go through maybe some bets, some spreads, some totals, some props, just kind of go over the week in general. For those of you that follow me on Twitter knows that gambling was kind of what I added to my account after, because it took off, and if I was doing the research for myself to just do the gambling anyways, it was just for me to put it out and people got interested, so I kind of did that. But NFL DFS is really where I started my whole thing, articles, cheat sheets, all that kind of stuff. It's, been my best ROI sport in terms of DFS, so that's where I started doing that. I don't know exactly what our schedule is going to be like in terms of what we're going to do for a weekly, when things are going to come out, but the idea is to hopefully have an article maybe at the beginning of the week recapping the week before, or some sort of short article that recaps the week before. We'll give you guys the podcast in the middle of the week, so on a Wednesday or Thursday. And then on a Friday, maybe some sort of article previewing the weekend. If there's anything that's changed since the podcast, that'll kind of maybe be a fluid thing where, if we record a podcast and then 2 days later, there's a big injury or there's something like that, maybe put an article out, get something like that. Saturdays, Friday nights or Saturdays are when I get my cheat sheet out. So I normally, for those who don't know, I normally do a 20 max. Obviously, I don't give away my lineups. I don't give away any of that. But what I do is I'll give you a cheat sheet of all the guys in my player pool. And then basically I do what I call is my bomb of the week. So my bomb of the week is usually a guy that should be less than 10% owned, a guy that fully has a chance to bust, but he has a ceiling that's, to the top, above the roof. That's kind of what we look for, the bomb of the week. So I'll do that with the cheat sheet. I also every Sunday morning hopefully. Last year was almost every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I do a live stream because then we've got inactives. Then you're able to kind of go through any final NFL DFS questions, any gambling questions, any of that. Kyle may or may not join me at some points this year. I know he goes to some games. I know Sunday is one of the 7 days in a week that Kyle drinks. I think maybe we'll call it 6.5. Football season's a little different.
It's different. I mean, we got. Well,
there's a game on Monday. There's a game on Thursday. There's college on Friday. There's college on Saturday. There's NFL on Sunday. And last year, I mean, the fucking Ravens were playing on Wednesday. So it's like, oh, sorry, mom. Like, time to crack a beer. The Ravens and Steelers are playing. Like, it's fucking Wednesday. It's wild. But that's what we're gonna do for you guys this year. Kyle may be a part of it. JP, we've talked about. He's down in school. So he's not up at Minnesota, and he's got no interest in going to see the Cowboys play, nor are they anywhere really near where he is anyways. So maybe he'll help out on Sunday mornings when we do the live stream. But just that's kind of going to be it. You guys, in terms of like content, maybe writing some articles here or there going forward, who knows, maybe we'll get to that point. If you guys want to, obviously, it's whatever you guys end up wanting to do. But I think that's just kind of where we're at now. Kyle, K Mastoloni on Twitter, JP Viking Fan JP on Twitter. I am Gambling DFS Tips on Twitter. I think I kind of put out mine's obviously directed all towards putting out content. You guys, it's a personal account versus a content account too, so it'll be a combination of the two. But I think that's good. That it kind of provides dual looking at it in terms of that. I know I said at the beginning of the podcast, but for wherever you guys are watching or listening, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google, wherever you guys listen or watch, it's so easy. All you do is you rate, review, subscribe, whatever it asks you to do. Subscribe is always the number one thing. It's always the same. That's always pretty much on every platform. It's a subscribe. That's the easiest for us because then we can go and try and get some sponsorships or going to get some certain things where it allows us to keep this free for you guys. And then hopefully at some point being able to kind of develop this into, a full-on production, whether it's me or somebody else getting a full producer, putting some actual video edits into this, some graphics, kind of trying to get to that point. We want to grow, but we can only grow as fast as you guys can help us. Obviously, if our content sucks and this podcast sucks, like we're not expecting to grow, but I think we're going to I think we do a good job. I think it's going to be a perfect combination of we've got some good knowledge, we do some good research, but it's also at the end of the day just three guys that like watching football, and it's guys that can just watch football, talk about football, enjoy football. Like I said, thank you guys. Subscribing goes a long way. Rating, reviewing, liking on YouTube. If you comment, we'll be there to answer any questions or do any of that stuff. If anybody has any questions, any suggestions, I know we talked about it earlier, feel free to send me a DM on Twitter. We're always open to suggestions. I'll never, somebody sends a suggestion, I'm never gonna be like, oh, they're trying to say my shit's bad. Like I always tell people, the biggest strength in life is knowing what you don't know. And if, everyone's gonna give you a suggestion to help, I think that's kind of where we're at, especially like I said, like we're trying to grow. So thank you guys for joining us. This has been we'll call this episode 1 of season 1 of the NFL version of Chasing Winners podcast. On behalf of Kyle and JP, I am Ryan Baumohl. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back. I think we'll decide a couple weeks. We'll be back right before week 1. We're going to take a couple weeks off for the preseason, not much else to do, and then we'll be back before week 1. Unless something big happens, we'll record another pod before then. Thank you guys for listening, and hopefully we have a great year and we can all make some good money. Thanks, guys.